So, what does the acronym MAIN stand for when talking about the causes of World War I? Militarism, alliances, imperialism, nationalism? Which event directly triggered or, was the spark for the start of World War I? The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Which two major alliance systems existed before the war? The Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. Which countries were in the Triple Entente? Britain, France, Russia. Which countries were in the Triple Alliance? Germany, Austria, Hungary, Italy. What is militarism? Building up a country's military and being ready to use it. Why was Franz Ferdinand assassinated? He was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist who wanted independence for Bosnia from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. How did alliances make a small conflict become a world war? Once one country was attacked, its allies joined in, causing other alliances to respond, spreading the conflict across many nations. Name one example of imperialism that increased tension between European countries before World War I. The competition between Britain and Germany for colonies in Africa. What type of warfare was most common on the Western Front? Trench warfare. What was no man's land? The area between two enemy trenches. Name two weapons commonly used in World War I. Machine guns and poison gas. Others were tanks, artillery, rifles, grenades. What was life like in the trenches? Name two conditions soldiers faced. Life was muddy, wet, and dangerous. Soldiers faced rats, lice, cold, trench foot, and the constant threat of attack. What was a dogfight in World War I? A dogfight was an aerial battle between fighter planes. What were tanks first used for in World War I? Breaking through enemy trenches. Which technology improved communication between trenches and headquarters? Telephones and field radios. Name two new weapons or technologies that were developed during World War I. Machine guns and tanks. Others include poison gas, flamethrowers, airplanes, submarines. What was the purpose of using barbed wire in trench warfare? To slow down or trap enemy soldiers trying to cross no man's land. Name one way that airplanes were used during World War I. For spying or reconnaissance, bombing, or air-to-air combat, also known as dogfights. In what year did Germany surrender in World War I? 1918. What does the word armistice mean? An agreement to stop fighting, basically a ceasefire. Why did German soldiers and civilians want the war to end? They were suffering from hunger, illness, low morale, and a lack of supplies. What was one major consequence of Germany's surrender? Germany had to accept blame for the war and pay reparations under the Treaty of Versailles. So, when was the Treaty of Versailles signed? Well, it was actually signed in 1919. How did the Treaty of Versailles affect Germany's military? It was limited in size and weapons. Germany's army was limited to 100,000 men, and it wasn't allowed tanks, aircraft, or submarines. What territory did Germany lose to France as part of the Treaty of Versailles? That would be Alsace-Lorraine. What was the main purpose of the Treaty of Versailles? To officially end World War I and to punish Germany for starting the war. Name two ways the Treaty of Versailles punished Germany. Germany had to pay reparations and reduce its army. Other answers could be accept blame for the war, lose land, or lose colonies. What was the war guilt clause of the Treaty of Versailles, and why did it anger Germans? It forced Germany to accept full blame for the war, which, honestly, many Germans believed was unfair. What was one political effect of the Treaty of Versailles in Germany? More people began supporting extreme political groups. The treaty caused anger and hardship, and the Nazis promised to reject it and make Germany strong again, which gained them support. What part of Germany was demilitarized, meaning no soldiers were allowed, because of the Treaty of Versailles? The Rhineland. What were reparations, and why did they hurt Germany? Reparations were payments Germany had to make to the Allies. They hurt the economy and caused inflation and hardship. Why did many Germans call the Treaty of Versailles a diktat? Because they weren't allowed to negotiate the terms and were forced to sign it, like a dictated peace. What happened to Tsar Nicholas II during the Russian Revolution? He was removed from power and later executed. Which political party took over after the Russian Revolution? That would be the Bolsheviks. Who was the leader of the Bolsheviks? Vladimir Lenin. What caused many Russians to want a revolution in 1917? Poverty, hunger, losses in World War I, poor leadership, and anger at the Tsar's rule. Name one change the Bolsheviks made after taking power. They took land from nobles and gave it to peasants. Other changes included ending private businesses, introducing communist rule, and leaving World War I. What type of government did Russia have before the 1917 revolution? Monarchy. What did the Bolsheviks promise the people? Land, peace, bread. What was the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk? A peace treaty between Russia and Germany. What was the main goal of the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk for the Bolsheviks? To end Russia's involvement in World War I, so they could focus on building a communist government. Name one country or region that Russia lost because of the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Ukraine, Poland, Finland, or the Baltic states, like Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania. Why was the treaty seen as harsh for Russia? Russia lost a lot of land, people, and resources to Germany. What happened to the treaty after Germany lost World War I later in 1918? The treaty was cancelled, since Germany's defeat made it invalid.